Are you ready to come to the UK? And by that question, I don't mean do you have your visa sorted, do you have a job lined up, or do you even have anywhere to stay? No. I'm talking about something important. I mean, when you do get here, are you actually going to be able to understand what we're saying to you? So how good are your listening skills, really? I mean, do you need subtitles to be able to understand me right now? Because I'm afraid to say, there are no subtitles in real life. Hey, it's all good if you need subtitles, don't worry. But the point of today's video is to answer the question, when you do come to the UK, will you be able to actually understand real everyday English conversation at a natural pace? Because that is exactly what I'm going to be showing you. Hello there, my name is Dylan and welcome to a brand new video. If you are new here, hi, I post fun and entertaining English lessons every single Friday. So today I'm going to be hitting you with some random everyday small talk, and I just want you to see how much of it you can understand. So I'm not going to try to speak particularly clearly or slowly. Firstly, because I want this to be as realistic as possible. And secondly, because I really want to test your listening abilities. Finally, throughout this video, I am going to be using quite a lot of different British expressions and pieces of vocabulary. So if I say something that I think will be beneficial for you to know, it will pop up on the screen here with a brief definition of that word or expression. Everything that does pop up will also be included in a free PDF, and the link is in the top comment. Right guys, best of luck and enjoy the video. Right guys, so I've got some random small talk questions in front of me, which I'm going to be answering. Just to warn you in advance, I am going to be going on some tangents here, so I am going to be getting slightly off topic and rambling a little bit, but that is a good thing because that is actually what realistic small talk is like. So it's going to be good practice for you. Right, number one. What is the best and worst thing about British culture? So the best thing has to be the food. Ha, funny. No, the best thing is the humour. That joke there may not have been the best example of that, but in general, British humour is pretty good. It's very dry, sarcastic, sardonic, and quite unique. However, this does tie in with the worst thing about British culture as well, and that is that there is this pessimism around everything. So of course with the humor we just take the piss out of everyone and everything, which is funny. However, this does translate to other parts of life as well, and there's like this, as I say, this sense of pessimism that you can't really do anything, and if you dream big then you're kind of foolish and naive, and this is like the antithesis of the American culture where anyone can achieve anything. So if you say to one of your American buddies that you want to, I don't know, run for president, they'll say something like, awesome, man, you got this. Go live your dream, bro. Whereas if you said to someone in the UK that you wanted to start a business, they'd probably give you about 10 reasons why it won't work. Just is what it is. So I think this is changing a little bit as people are kind of talking about it more and becoming more aware of it. I'd say that's probably the worst thing about the British culture, the fact that there just isn't this sense of, there's like this invisible barrier that you can't really achieve everything you want to achieve or do something that is seen as unusual. And I'm not the only person that says this. A lot of people say this about the UK as well. And I think it's the reason why quite a lot of people are leaving the UK at the moment. They're all going to Thailand. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's a good place to go to. Or they're going to like America if they can afford it. So yeah, hopefully that does get resolved. We'll see. But at least we're funny. What do you think makes a country feel like home? Good question. For me, I think it boils down to two different things. Firstly, kind of knowing where you're going. And by this I mean, you can walk to a shop, you can walk to the train station, you can walk to the gym without having to get Google Maps up on your phone. And I know that sounds like a small thing, and that can be achieved within like a few days, depending on how good your directions are. But it makes all the difference because there's something so, I don't know, you feel like such a foreigner when you go into a new place and you can't get anywhere. You're solely reliant on your phone telling you where everything is. But there's something about just being able to get up in the morning and then walk to a shop and then walk back without having to get like directions on your phone that for me just makes you feel so much more comfortable in that place. And I think the other thing is also related to shops, and that is knowing what food you like and what food you don't like. So when you go to, this is the problem with like 7-Eleven. This is relevant, all right? The problem with shops like 7-Eleven is that their branding is so good, especially in another country. So when you first go to Asia and you walk into this shop, they'll have like these random packages of food with the most alluring branding. They have like bright colors and they'll have like photos of people on there enjoying the food or the drink. And it makes you want to buy it. And obviously you can't, most of the time if you're from the UK, you can't read these languages. So you just buy it and hope for the best. And the amount of times that I've been caught out by that and spent money on food that I was so excited to try, take one bite or one sip and it's just dire. It's horrible and it's the most disappointing thing ever. There is one drink in Korea that perfectly epitomizes this, and I'll put it on the screen. Do not buy this. It looks nice, but it's absolutely disgusting. You will be disappointed. So yeah, guys, I think in general, just kind of knowing roughly where you are and knowing what food and drink you want to buy, and most importantly, don't want to buy in a place makes such a big difference when it comes to actually feeling at home there. Let me know, guys, if you think I've missed anything out there. Of course, speaking the language helps, but yeah. Right, how many pairs of shoes do you actually wear? These questions are quite random. I've got, I think, 3 in rotation at the moment. So I've got some black suede boots, which I adore, but they're only really suitable for the winter. So I'm going to have to put those to the side for summer. I have some just like regular trainers. I think they're New Balances that I kind of just wear for everything else. And I have some running shoes. Cool. But I am going to give you a bit of a bonus story here because that's a pretty boring question and answer otherwise. So I think I need to add a 4th shoe to my inventory because, well, this all comes from a fateful night in Japan where it was a Friday night and I was at a bar having a few drinks and I ended up speaking to some people. One thing led to another, and I was invited to participate in a 5-a-side football tournament. So they heard us from the UK, and people just associate the UK with football, and rightfully so. They asked if I play. I said, yeah, sometimes. They asked if I was any good, and I made the slightly regrettable decision of saying, yeah, I'm really good, actually, yeah. Which, in fairness, I used to be okay, so I kind of just assumed that I would still be okay. I was never brilliant, but I was all right. I could hold my own, and I kind of thought that would still be the case. So they then invited me to this 5-a-side football tournament the next day, so about 6 hours on from that point, because it was quite a late night, and I agreed, and I was quite ill-equipped. I didn't really have everything I needed, so I had a top, I had some shorts, and I had some running shoes. So this is relevant, don't worry. So I got there, but they actually picked me up in the morning. We drove there, and when we got there, we had to wait like an hour and a half, which I thought was very strange because it was boiling hot sun, by the way, and we just had to sit there for 90 minutes before we could even kick a ball. And that's definitely a difference between, well, if we were in the UK, we probably would have arrived about 5 minutes before kickoff, and we would be running from the car to the pitch so that we can actually play the game. Anyway, we did that and we played and I played and I was in my running shoes and yeah, it wasn't the best performance from myself, I must admit. And I misplaced a few passes and I'm going to have to put that down to the shoes I was wearing. Yeah, I mean, they're quite chunky. I'll put a photo on the screen. They're quite chunky. So obviously that's going to cause you to, it's going to interfere with your style of play a little bit. That's what I was telling myself and telling everyone else around me as well. So the point is maybe I need to add a 4th shoe, like some Azzies or something like that. Azzies, all right, so the pitch that you play on is an AstroTurf. That's the artificial grass pitch. Like pretty much every secondary school, I would say, in the UK has these. They're quite common. So Azzies are what we call shoes that you use on the AstroTurf, and they normally relate to football shoes as well. So I need a pair of those just for when These serendipitous moments arise where I'm asked to participate in a random five-a-side football tournament. Not to be confused with Azaz, by the way, which is what you say to the person in 7-Eleven after they hand you your disappointing food. If you had to live inside one food packet for a day, which one would you choose? Important question. I would say Haribo's. I'm sure you have Haribo's in your country as well. I think Haribo is German. I think it's a German company. Anyway, Haribo, specifically the Love Heart ones, because I've always admired how soft and comfy the white padding behind the Love Heart looks. So I feel like that would be a pretty chill place to sleep at night. Yeah, also good vibes because you're surrounded by Love Hearts. What's something new you've started doing? I can actually show you. This is my answer. So as you know, I've sort of been making more of these ramble style videos where I just talk and talk and talk. And the point of this is to help you improve your listening skills, but also to teach you some new vocabulary as well. However, there is a very good expression that I'm going to teach you right now, and this is true for most areas of life, and that is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So you can't give knowledge, you can't give money, you can't give resources if you don't have them yourself. And that is why I have been on a conscious effort to improve my own vocabulary. So yeah, this is a new habit I've started doing. So I'm reading a book at the moment. I said this a couple of weeks ago. It's called Ego is the Enemy, and it's a good book, but it's quite advanced. And this is a little bit embarrassing, but as I read it, there are so many words that I don't even know. So what I've done is as I'm reading it, if I see a word I don't know, or if I kind of know but I wouldn't feel comfortable using in a sentence, I write it down, and then I write down what the word is, I write down the type of word, the definition, and an example sentence. And then I can read this like in the morning. When I have some spare time, I can have a look at this and start using the words in sentences. And then ideally, the whole point of this is that when I make these videos, I can start using more advanced words, and then you guys can learn them as well. So you can't pour from an empty cup. So I will teach you a word. Right, we're going to learn an adverb, and that is peremptorily. Peremptorily. And if you do something peremptorily, it's in a way that leaves no room for refusal or debate. So it's very commanding or decisive. So the example is, he peremptorily instructed the team to proceed with the plan. Yeah, very advanced word for you right there. And I was talking to one of my students, and he asked the best way to remember the words that I teach him in the lesson, and that is honestly such a good way. And I would actually recommend buying a physical notebook as opposed to writing it down on your phone, because there's something about actually having the thing in front of you and the sort of the novelty of actually having like a vocabulary book that seems to make all the difference. So yeah, that's the easiest way to learn vocabulary, I would say. Right, next question. What's the scariest moment of your life? It happened, the scariest moment of my life was about 2 years ago in Korea. Actually, I need to go to some new countries, really. I feel like all my stories stem from the same sort of area of the world. Anyway, in Korea, I was somewhere called Jeju Island, and Jeju is like this beautiful island. I think it's south of South Korea, so it's just below. And Jeju's lovely. It's kind of like whenever you're there, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of just like the countryside. There aren't really many people there. There aren't loads of buildings or shops. It's just trees, animals, and of course water, because you're on an island. So I went there in summer, and it was a particularly sunny day, and I decided to climb this mountain. So I had to get a bus from my accommodation to the bottom of the mountain. It took about half an hour. I basically got off at the wrong stop, and I was too stubborn to wait for the bus to go back to where I actually needed to go. So I decided to find my own way to the top of this mountain. So I got the Korean equivalent of Google Maps up on my phone. It took me along this path. I was walking, turn right up this steep hill. Wasn't really thinking anything of it. I nearly get to the top of this steep hill. I look up, and there is a dog there. Bear in mind, we are in the middle of nowhere. We are in the sticks. So this was like a big, scary, either rabid. I don't know if it was rabid, but it was like a stray dog or a wild dog. And that's kind of scary when you're in any situation. That's scary. But when there is no one else around, it's just you and this dog, it can be a bit intimidating. And especially because as soon as I looked up and saw the dog, he instantly looked at me as well, as if he was telepathic. He got up, started barking. I was like, what do I do here? So of course I wait for a second. He then very quickly starts running at me. So I turn around and leg it, obviously. I was running for about 30 seconds. All I could hear was just the ferocious barks of this dog. Eventually the barks get fainter and fainter. So I was very confused by this. I turn around. Thankfully, the dog was chained up. I couldn't see this at the start because it was, he was quite far away and it was quite a long chain as well. But honestly, if that dog hadn't have been chained, one of us would be dead. And I'm not joking, because it was a scary, aggressive dog. So I would say for that 30-second period when I was just running, that was probably the scariest moment of my life. Yeah. If you've been watching this channel for a while, I do have a bit of a recurring problems with animals trying to eat me. There was the elephant in Thailand. There was the tiger in Thailand. There was those monkeys in Malaysia, that deer in Japan, that cow last week that tried to eat me. 2 weeks ago, they tried to eat me. So I think it all stemmed from that moment. What was a hard time in your life and how did you deal with it? I'd probably have to say, before I was running this channel, I had another business where I was reworking vintage Levi's jeans. And that was very tough because I worked extremely hard on it for 2 years. For the first year in particular, I completely dedicated my life to it. I put every penny I had into it, and it was literally all I did. Every minute of the day was dedicated towards this business, and it just didn't really do anything. It didn't really take off, and that was very almost like demeaning. It's really hard when you put your all into something and it doesn't work. Eventually it did start to work when I was ecstatic about that. I was so happy. So one thing led to another. I kind of scaled the business a bit. I ended up renting a studio where I was living in the UK, and it was going quite well. I think I sold about 600, 700 pairs of jeans. Eventually, it kind of just hit like a bit of a plateau and the sales just stopped. My motivation for it dropped. But I'd say running that business gave me some of the hardest times of my life. There was one time in particular, I remember, I think it was like a Thursday afternoon. I'd been working like a dog all month, and I got in, I just eaten some food as well. So I was kind of like, when you eat and you feel a little bit sleepy, a little bit tired, a bit lethargic. I got in and I was just fed up. It had been a slow week for sales. I'd worked so hard with very little to show for it. I had just got a new shipment in of jeans to work on. They were all on the floor. Hadn't even organized them. So we have about this cold studio floor with about 20 different pairs of vintage Levi's jeans on them. And I just shut the door and just collapse onto these jeans and just end up having like a sleep in the middle of the day on some old vintage Levi's jeans. Woke up like an hour later, feeling slightly better. I feel like a nap always helps when you're feeling a bit low. But yeah, that's just one time in particular. And there were quite a few times like this as well, where I just felt rubbish and then just, powered through. So I think that's a hard time in my life. And you can probably relate to that. Well, maybe not, running a vintage Levi's reworked jeans business. That's quite niche. But I'm sure there are times you can relate to when you've just been working very hard on something and it hasn't quite worked out and you just feel so demotivated and you just feel rubbish. Maybe it's been your English learning journey. I'm sure there are times when you've worked very hard on like a certain aspect, maybe speaking, listening, trying to remember some vocabulary, and it just doesn't click. You just feel like you're not making progress, and it sucks. And I know, and I can relate. So I don't know. You're not the only one. Just keep going. That's my advice. What's something you've always wanted to learn? Dancing, because naturally I cannot dance. I'm so, arrhythmic? I think arrhythmic is a word. The opposite of rhythmic, which means that you can move your body well to music. Yeah, that's not me. And whenever I say this to some of my students, and it's always the people from South America, so the Latinos or the Latinas, they always say the same thing. And they're like, Dylan, you can dance. It's so easy. You just have to move your body to the music. And it's like, bro, it's different. All right. I know you're from Brazil. So, if you're from Brazil, you're either injected with two things, this incredible ability to play football or the ability to dance. You've probably been like salsaing around your house when you were like 3 years old in your nappies. And unfortunately, it just isn't the case for UK people. So maybe they're right. Maybe if you do just start moving your body to music, you'll magically be able to dance. But I think it comes a lot easier to some people than it does to others. So yeah, I think that is something I would quite like to learn. But I don't know when that will happen. You guys will find out there. I'll put it in like a newsletter, or probably won't make a video on it, but it will certainly make it into a newsletter if I start taking dance classes. What's a British slang word you overuse? I don't really use that many slang words in these videos, and I think that's because I'm kind of talking to myself. Whereas if I'm talking to someone else, especially another British person, I of course use some words that you don't really hear me use in these videos. I would say calm. I say calm a lot, and that just means like, yep, all good. Don't worry about it, that's fine. Sound. So a situation can be sound, which is the same as calm, just means all good. Or a person can be sound, which means they're just like a nice person. I say in it sometimes as well. And that is something that you say after you've made a statement. And it kind of means isn't it? So you say something like, oh, it's cold today, innit? Which kind of means like, it's cold today, isn't it? And then you can either reply to that by saying, yeah, in it, which means like, yeah, isn't it? Or just in it, which means isn't it? So you're kind of like agreeing with what you've just said by saying isn't it? You're like backing it up yourself. Or if you want to use it in response to someone else, you're agreeing with them by saying isn't it? Like, yes, it is. So yeah, I'd probably say calm, sound, in it. But as I say, in these videos, I don't really tend to use those words. What's the strangest thing you've ever eaten? Cow tongue. In Japan. Yeah, that's kind of like my revenge on all the animals that have tried to attack me. I'm just joking. It was in one of those restaurants where you sit down, they have like the oven or the stove in front of you, like the fire in front of you, and they give you like these chunks of meat and you kind of cook them yourself. And we were doing that. I was with one of my friends and we were just enjoying it. It was all very nice. And then there was one particular piece that looked quite alluring. So they were like, oh, try this. So put it in my mouth, tried it, instantly noticed how firm this texture was. And then as I put it in my mouth, my friend very nonchalantly told me like, oh yeah, that's cow tongue. And it was a bit grim because they told me as I was eating this thing. And as soon as they said that, I was like, yeah, this does feel like tongue actually. It feels very robust and firm. It doesn't really taste that nice. And I was basically chewing this thing for about a solid minute because it's just so firm. I eventually swallowed it and yeah, I didn't really like it, to be honest. Maybe if they had told me after that it was cow tongue, it would have changed the way that I experienced it. But it's the way they told me as I was eating it just kind of put me off it, to be honest. So I wouldn't recommend cow tongue personally. What's one app you couldn't live without? I'm going to have to say my camera, guys, because that is how I record all of these videos. Every single video you see on my channel has been recorded with the front camera of my phone. Very professional, I know. That's a bit of a boring answer, so I will give you another one. There's this app called Opal, and Opal is an app that prevents you from going on other apps. And I use this to stop me going on Instagram so much. I know, yep, everyone give me a round of applause. How amazing am I? Person tries to reduce social media usage. What an incredible person he is. But, it annoys me. It annoys me how kind of vulnerable I am to Instagram reels in particular. They're so addictive. They're so addictive. And it just pisses me off to the point where I'm annoyed that I can't control myself. That I'm just I give in so easily to these like Silicon Valley nerds that have made this really addictive app. So I eventually put my ego to the side and I was like, yeah, I need help. So I downloaded Opal. This isn't like a paid ad, by the way. Opal's completely free. If you are struggling with any sort of social media addiction, I'd highly recommend it. You just put Instagram in, and then it basically blocks that app on your phone. It basically just adds like a barrier to entry. It makes it quite awkward to go on the app. You have to like wait for a while. I'd highly recommend it. And it's crazy because even though I've blocked Instagram, you still have this need to scroll. So that doesn't go away. I'm sure it does if you do it for a long time, but you still have this need to scroll. So I've just resorted to scrolling other things on my phone as well. But I don't have any other social media on my phone. So I just end up like scrolling like the Sky Sports football app. So I'm checking like the lineup of the upcoming England under-21 friendly against like Slovakia or something. And it just doesn't really hit the same, where I'm like scrolling through the WhatsApp family group chat. It doesn't really hit the same. So you'll still scroll once you've downloaded this app, but it'll be a lot less entertaining, which means that you'll scroll for a shorter amount of time. And I guess that is the point. Yeah. And you will also massively up your knowledge of the international under-21 football scene. So that's a added benefit, I guess. What's one stereotype about the British you find funny? Maybe like 11s that people think that every day, or like afternoon tea 11s type thing that people think at that time. Obviously not everyone, but some people think that at that time we will have like drop what we're doing and then go to the fancy dining hall and have some scones and some tea and some Victoria sponge cake and it will all be lovely. But that isn't really the case. I'd say what most people do at 11, they might eat something, but it won't be this fine British delicacy. It will be like a packet of crisps or something like that. So by all means, if you come here, especially if you're on holiday, enjoy yourself. Every time the clock strikes 11, drop what you're doing and go and make some tea and have some cake and some scones and put on Downton Abbey. Like, live your British dream for sure. But most of us don't do that. Okay. And I'll give you something else. A stereotype I find quite unfunny, and that is this whole bottle of water thing. And it only really seems to be Americans that make this joke. Every other country, they find out you're British, is like, yeah, cool. They might invite you to a football tournament, but that's about it. Whereas Americans, they're just adamant that they have to say, can I get a bottle of water, mate, to you? And it's just so unfunny. And when you say something like that, it kind of sounds like, it's hard for it to not sound like you're being salty or that you're offended in some way. It's genuinely not the case. It doesn't offend me whatsoever. I just think it's quite unfunny. I just don't think it's funny. So yeah, I mean, they're going to keep doing it. So just something you got to get used to, really. What is a country you want to visit? I'd like to go to Canada and South America, as I say. South America, because if I go there, that's a good opportunity for me to learn how to dance. I think Argentina, Chile, and probably Brazil. Those are probably the three main places I'd like to visit there. Other than that, I'd quite like to go to Canada as well. So Canada, I don't know why, it just seems like really... Canadian people are very friendly and nice, and I think they have good coffee there as well. The vibes just seem quite good. I did go there when I was like 3, but I don't really remember it. I remember 3 things. Having chocolate cake on the flight there, getting like a fresh packet of Pokemon cards and seeing a polar bear. I'm guessing the polar bear was in a zoo and not just like roaming the streets of Toronto. Anywhere where there are wild animals roaming though is good for me because, like, as you guys know, this channel pretty much relies on me occasionally getting attacked by these wild animals because I can just bleed like videos and newsletters out of them for days. So what animals do they have in Brazil? Monkeys? I'm guessing I've already done monkeys. Turtles? Do you guys have turtles? If you do, then I'll come and I'll get eaten by a turtle or something like that. Or a turtle tried to kill me. That'd be a good video, I reckon. So yeah, South America, learn to dance, or Canada, and have some more chocolate cake and coffee. Right, final question. What's something small that really annoys you? when people type on their phone with the volume on, so you can just hear the and then they make a mistake, so they have to hit the back key like and it absolutely does my head in. Right guys, and there we have it. Thank you for watching. So you should hopefully have a better idea now of how good your everyday listening skills actually are, and most importantly, if you will be able to survive when you come to the UK. If you have found today's video hard, please don't worry, because the solution is very simple. Practice. You just need more practice. And for this, I would simply recommend replaying the parts of today's video that you found challenging, just until you are able to fully understand what I'm saying. So now that your listening is sorted, we just have one more problem. Speaking, yeah. Unfortunately, when you come here, you're probably going to have to do some speaking as well. Damn. Ah well, luckily you can watch this video right here where I will instantly teach you how to say 50 of the most common sentences in the modern RP British accent. So if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment down below, and remember to check out the free PDF for all of today's vocabulary. Right guys, thank you again for watching, and I will see you next Friday for another lesson. Cheers.